Well, a very happy Monday morning to everyone out there listening to the Monday Mornings with Matt and Kevin show. Well, Matt, unfortunately, is again ill. He's on the mend. I've been in contact with him. He's getting better. His voice is still out. He had it rough, man. He had a really rough week or two. I think everyone out there seems to probably be feeling that too. I mean, I know here in Germany, people have been sick and really sick, like really in bed, for 4 or 5 days. That's just kind of how it's been this year. But we're still moving forward. We're still going to have a show. And today I'm joined by my parents. And we're going to talk about a couple things. We got a couple things on the docket. We're going to talk about kind of like our upcoming schedule, what our 2024 looks like as of right now. There's some really cool stuff coming up, even series coming up that we may be doing weekly, which is really exciting. I know, at least on my side. And we're also going to talk at the end about what's going on at the border in the U.S. to Mexico. And I know everyone hears that like, oh, great, more drudgery, more depressing talk about politics. But actually, and anyone who knows my dad won't be surprised by this, there is an actually optimistic take on what is going on at the border, which definitely stick around for that. And what we're going to do, too, is I'm going to add in the show notes at the point where our political discussion begins. So anyone who wants to skip to that, go ahead. It's obviously fine. But before that, we're going to talk about, I think we're going to first talk about a show that you guys want to do that has been in the, I wouldn't say in the planning, but it's been in discussions for a couple of years almost. And that is talking about the Salesian method of raising children.
Yeah. Lisa, do you want to talk about, well, I guess I'll kick it off a little bit here that, it was kind of ironic. We had the show, I think it was on the 31st of St. John Bosco. And this was Lisa's Fise Quick Take, and actually came from last year. And last year, at the very end, we said that we would have a follow-up discussion on the Salesian method of parenting, and we never did it. We never got our back to it, even though I think we had the intent of doing it. And this year, that St. John Bosco came up again, and that conclusion came up again in the Salesian method, and we decided, hey, let's actually do it this time. So, Lisa, I think you've got the idea of how we want to do this.
Well, I have a basic outline written by St. John Bosco himself about the Salesian method. And I thought I love the way Holly and Mandy read the book that they read on Thursdays for What is a Woman podcast. And then they talk about it. And I just think it's a really effective way of getting a conversation started. And you can't do better than St. John Bosco. So I thought we would just go through his outline. And it's a very simple outline. He's written a lot more on it. But I thought the outline would be the most efficient way just to then and talk about what we've learned and what we and what in real life, the real life use of St. John Bosco's method in an actual family, which is a little bit different than in a school setting. So, you do have to make adjustments for it, but I thought that would be a springboard.
And it's a little bit different in 2024 than it was in the 1800s, right, too. So I think that's part of what we want to be able to put out there is the context for, I mean, you got a world absolutely gone mad, run amok with no pope and all that. And so how do you navigate through that using the Salesian method? And I think there's just a tremendous amount there to discuss.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, and I guess we're not going to get too far into this because we have a lot of other things we want to talk about. And again, there's going to be a whole series about this, but I guess I don't know who wants to answer this, but very basically, maybe in elevator pitch, what is the Salesian method? When you say that, what does that mean? Because I think people have heard about it. They've heard of St. John Bosco, but what's the difference? What does it separate between how anybody raises their kids?
Well, I think that for us, what was eye-opening for me the first time I ever read about the Salesian method, it was a little pamphlet that we stumbled upon that explained it very basically in that it was discipline out of love, not discipline out of punishment. And I think that is the bottom line of it. And how does one do this? St. John Bosco obviously basic discipline is a very important thing to understand, but the best way to teach that and to make it a lasting impression upon a child is for him to learn to obey, for him to learn to act out of love. And that is that's the higher form of obedience, to do the right thing out of love for God. And as a parent, you're training your children toward God, and you want your child to behave and to be good because they don't want to disappoint you. you know just like we should be trying to be good Christians and good people because we don't want to disappoint God. So that is, I would say, the bottom line of what the difference is in the Salesian method versus the old nuns with rulers idea of
Right.
Catholic education, and that has been out there. I mean, I would not say, in my 11 years of Catholic schooling, I was never hit with a ruler by a teaching sister, but that idea is still out there, and I think it's a good one to do away with for the most part. And I think that's one of the things that St. John Bosco believed too.
Yeah, and I won't get too much into the details here, but I think in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, we see where things had gotten a little bit swung. The pendulum has swung to the harsh and kind of the rigid and cold with teaching methods. You see that kind of out in society now. They've swung way to the other extreme, way to the other extreme. Yeah, where parents now feel like they are almost subjects of their children. The children are the center of the universe, and I think the proper place is in the middle there, and that's really kind of what we want to explore.
It's true. That's true. Yeah, you don't want to swing too far the other way either. There are rules, and rules are very important.
Well, it's pretty amazing too if you think about it, that he was say John Bosco was taking kids off the street, boys off the street, and turning some of them into saints. I mean, so I mean, obviously something he was doing was working. So I think that's an exciting thing, and I know that people are really looking forward to it. There's a lot of things that I want to know because obviously I have a little boy and maybe more to come, and I know it's for girls too, but I think it obviously primarily he worked with boys, and I'm really curious because there's a lot of these things that as they grow, as little Basti grows, I want to be able to do these things. And now's the time. I know that we've had discussions lately with our group of men here at church, and it's like, okay, what do you do once a boy is a teenager and he won't, It's like, well, oof, it's tough. At that point,
it's tough by the time they're teenagers. Yeah.
So you're gonna start young.
You win battles. You win those battles starting about 3 or 4 years old. Yeah. And you've got until about their 9 or 10 to really, really win the battles. And once they're 13 or 14, it gets tough.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I'm definitely fascinated by it. I mean, I would love, and I know others out there would love to get you guys, maybe get you guys a couple other wizened parents on a panel and just say, do a frequently asked questions from parents. Okay, guys. Okay. And someone answer me this. And we joked before the show, like, okay, what do you do when you have a little boy who screams at the top of his lungs for 10 minutes at a time just because he's angry, because he's a little
asking
he's
for
a little
friend.
choleric? I'm not sure. I mean, yeah, exactly. I'm just hypothetical. But no, I mean, it's valuable stuff. I mean, what is more valuable than having some good advice from a great saint on how to raise children? So no, I'm super excited about that. I hope. Do you guys have a planned starting date?
Probably, yeah. Your mom's going to be actually going to Wales. This is another one of the things we want to talk about real quickly. If anybody who follows the show knows that our oldest son, your brother William, is in Germany and getting ready to come back home after he's been there for about 6 months or so. And they're Lisa and William are going to meet up in Wales and actually be in Wales for St. David's Day, which is the patron. St. David of Wales is the patron saint of the Davis family, and they'll be on St. David's Day, March 1st, and be there for another week or two, and actually be able to do a little bit of podcasting out of Wales. So probably, in all likelihood, as my guess is that we'll start this show after Easter, and if it goes well, it will. In the Salesian Method one goes well, we'll maybe start looking into, I don't know, Pope Pius XII, or we'll start looking into this guy John Rosemond who presented at the Battle Conference a couple of years ago. I mean, we'll take a look at other subject matter and kind of continue the show on if it's successful. So that's kind of the plan.
Perfect. No, that's exciting. I also want to mention a show we have coming up probably here in the next couple of weeks with a good friend of the show by now is Dominic over at Maccabean Uprising. He's been on the show several times talking about the correlations between the Old Testament and the New Testament, between the Gospels and the Passion of the Church. It's really fascinating. It's stuff that we've had a really, really good reaction to. And so he's going to be coming on and doing short 5-10 minute videos every week, going more into the details of these topics. Something I'm really excited about because it's just, to me, it's fascinating and it helps me to learn more about the Old Testament, more about the faith. And these are things that, as he'll mention in every show, it's not binding. It's not something you have to believe. These are things that maybe he has seen, or that, other people in the church have seen, these correlations, but they're not necessarily true. They're not always from the church fathers, etc. But very interesting stuff that I think will be thought provoking. So I'm really excited for that. That will hopefully be a weekly show. So that's another big thing coming to the channel. And I know
we've got another one.
Yeah.
Big one, yeah, and this is partly by way of apology. We were up at we spent a lot of time last year, first in June and then again in October, up at the Mount St. Michael's, and did a lot of interviews with people for the Indefectible series, and then Lisa went back and did interviews on host making, how our hosts are actually physically made and sent out to parishes. Super fascinating. And then she also did an interview with Anne-Marie Netzel, who gave up at the Mount, who gave a formal tour of Mount St. Michael's, which is another absolutely fascinating thing. We've been kind of, I don't know if I'd say sitting, but we've not been able to get those interviews processed out yet. And I think that's one of our goals for probably, again, after Easter, is number one, we're going to take the interviews that we did for Indefectible, and we're going to pull out 5 to 15 minute segments and turn them into what we call Indefectible shorts. So we've got the story of the miraculous statue in the Mount, up at the Mount. We've got a miraculous death that one of the parish members talked about up there, and some other just fantastic stories that we're going to take and we're going to put into short Indefectible series. So if you're up at the Mount and listening here, we apologize. We haven't gotten any of this out there, but we are working on it and hoping to have it up by April or May.
Awesome. Yeah, this stuff, it's one of those things that people don't quite understand how much work goes into this type of editing and having to dig through, because you got to watch it through, you got to take it out, you got to put it in, you got to edit it. I mean, and we're all, we're working people here. It's not like we do this full time. So I hope people do understand that these things do just sometimes, I mean, they sit around, but it's not because we're just being lazy. They just sit around because, well, we got other things to do sometimes. So, but no, that's right. Really, so one question, do they provide all of the CMRI hosts from the Mount?
They do.
Do they ship them? They do to everybody.
They do. Wow. It's amazing. You're going to love this one. It was one of my favorite interviews.
Wow. That's cool. And it's kind of, how it's done, like these videos that used to be on the TLC channel or the Discovery channel that show you how things work. I mean, what's more fascinating than seeing, exactly how do things go? I would be interested. So this is an interesting thing. Sorry, I'm going a little bit off topic, but we found here in Germany. So we had a group of priests visit us last year, 2 years ago now. We had a little priest meeting, and it came to it that there was an issue that they didn't have enough mass wine. Just there were 4 or 5 priests, and just kind of came to it. It's like, okay, hey, can you guys, kind of figure it out? Could you go to the store and find something? But it has to contain no sulfites. It has to be pure. Right. So it's like grapes, period, end. And that is really, really, really hard to find. And so there are a couple vineyards that you can find around Europe, even. I don't know how many, maybe more than a couple, but it's very difficult. And it's just one of these fascinating things that the church, and if anyone watched the video about the church up in Olathe, how particular the church is, the Catholic Church is as a whole, in what it does. It has ordinances for everything. There are rules for every little bit of what goes into the church. It's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. Fast. And Lisa, do you want a spoiler alert here? Do you want to tell how they transport the priests?
No, you got to save that. Because we'll save that. It's really cool, but I don't want to tell it. You have to wait. It's cool, but weird.
Yeah.
Coming soon to the Catholic. Oh,
Coming soon.
I
soon.
actually,
Right.
I think I actually know how. I think I know this story. I think I've seen it actually in
Yeah.
action. Wait, no,
No.
yeah, yeah, true. No, actually, I do know that. Okay, perfect. No, that's exciting stuff. Well, and we hope as always that people stay tuned. We all go through the doldrums sometimes, and I think that we keep pushing forward. We produce content, but we have some good stuff that's coming too. And as everyone knows, hopefully by now, we're going to try to do the Lent around the world, so people they can contribute readings from books that have that should be Lenten. They should be something that is thought provoking, on the Passion, etc. It just needs to have an imprimatur pre 1958. It needs to have the approval of a traditional Catholic priest, or you can send it to us, and then we can try to get that approval from a priest beforehand. Really easy. It's something that we literally had children doing it when we did it 2 years ago. It was really, we had children doing it. It's really great. It's really I think a boost for people's faith. And
It's
so I
a
think it's
whole.
going to be
It's really wholesome.
yeah, no, it's really fantastic. It's these short little readings from all sorts of different books from all around the world. So please participate. I'm going to try. My goal is to get a whole first week read by Catholic priests, and I hope
Oh,
if I do
nice.
that, if I can do that, then people will get the idea. Oh, this is pretty nice, and then they'll contribute, because we really need your help, guys. I mean, Lent is a long time, so there's a lot of days that we need to get content for. So we do need your help. Please email me at kevin89davis@gmail.com. It's really easy. It's not a problem. I don't overthink it. You can really do this, and we really want you to take part in it as well. So I think that's about it. Is there any other programming type stuff? I think that was about covered it.
Paul Picard put together, and we do have this. We lost it the first time he sent it to us,
Right.
and he read out a reading from Cardinal Raphael Mary Duval, a presentation that he had made to, who was it, Lisa? It was the women?
It was
group?
a women's organization in Rome. I don't
Yeah.
remember what year, 40s or 50s. No, it might have been the 30s. It was quite early, but it's a really, really wonderful outtake from a talk of his.
Yeah.
What's the
And
topic?
Christian motherhood. And I think it, and in the world at that time, which is, you think about what the world was like back then compared to what the world is like today, but it's pertinent and then some.
Cool.
So it's a wonderful outtake, but it's
We wanna-
well past time to get that out there.
Yeah, and we want to produce it right. We don't want to just throw it out as an audio. So we want to take and do that right. So that's another one. And then I also I'm working on a top 20 shorts that would, a lot of people probably have not seen the shorts that have gone out there. They're fascinating. They're really cool. And we got a list of the top 20. So I'm hoping to get that one out there this week.
And again, I know everyone's probably overwhelmed by this point, but it's actually something too that really helps me and us, that if you run across an article in, if it's Intro Ebo, if it's Steve Spurray, if it's Novus Ordo Watch, if it's CMRI, and you're like, wow, this is really helpful, this is really interesting, etc., and you think it would be a good podcast, that is such a help for me when people send me these links and like, hey, this would be a great audio. I will sit down that day and make it into a podcast. I mean, really, that stuff helps me out so much, because I just don't have time to go around reading all these things. And there's so much material out there. It's just incredible how much material there is, and good material on these different blogs and websites. So that is a really huge help. And that doesn't take you anything. If you read an article and you're like, wow, that was a great article, send it to me, please. Just send it to me. Facebook, Twitter, email. You guys get the point. Please do that. That's a huge help, and it just gives us content that's easier to produce, but it's still very helpful for people who can listen to these things in their car when they might not have the opportunity to read them in long form. Okay, so enough about the Catholic Family Podcast. Again, if anyone has any questions or anything, please email me, kevin89davis@gmail.com. Dad, we want to get into your hypotheses, I suppose, are your thoughts on what is going on the southern border. And I mean, it's hard for me, because I generally, the last year or two, I've completely stayed out of politics, like completely. I just don't even care. I'm just sick of it. But I've turned it back on because it's election year, and it's interesting now. And I hear all these things of, the U.S. bombing Syria and Iraq, and pretty much you're at war at the southern border, and you have the feds fighting the local, law enforcement, et cetera. So how on earth can you take an optimistic approach to this, Ed? I'm truly curious.
Okay, so yeah, absolutely. Maybe it's because I'm more deep into it. We watch
Sure.
a lot of this at night and whatnot. But a quick background on what's going on at the border here is you've got the state of Texas has been trying to shore up its border. This huge influx of immigrants, and they're from all over the world. These are fighting age men, a lot of them, and they're
not just immigrants. These are illegal
right.
aliens.
They're illegals, yeah, legal aliens, and they're coming from Honduras, and they're coming from South America and Africa, and I mean all over the world. And it's really a terrible, terrible thing. And so what happened to begin with is Texas basically said, we're not going to deal with this all ourselves. We're going to send them to our sanctuary cities. These liberal feel good places that thought, oh yeah, we're good people. We'll pat our virtue signaling, and we're gonna be a sanctuary city for illegals. So Texas said, fine, we're going to send you the illegals. And now these illegals are going to places like Chicago and New York and Massachusetts, Boston, and the feel good liberals are like, we don't want them because now they're taking over our schools, and they're getting all of our resources and driving the prices of things up and taking our jobs and all that. And so and crime, they're bringing crime. Yeah, you had a big time case the other day where a kid attacked 2 policemen, got sent to jail, was let out without bail, just let out, and came out. They had cameras on him. He flipped off the cameras, and I mean, this was I think it was in Boston, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in the East, and just walked away. And so you got this horrible stuff going on. But back to the border, Texas is trying to shore up its border, and what it's doing is it's putting up razor wire. And especially at this one place called Eagle Pass, which is where near the Rio Grande, where a lot of the immigrants are coming from. And the Biden administration basically ordered the Border Patrol down the federal Border Patrol to go down and cut the razor wire to let these people in. So I mean, it's as obvious as can be that the liberals, the Biden administration, and it's not, I don't even blame Joe Biden. He's just a vegetable basically at this point. But whoever's pulling his strings want this immigration flood coming in, and they want to cause trouble down at the border, with the state officials. So you got this there's a case pending in lower court that Texas is trying to stop them from cutting the wire, and it's held up in court. Well, in the meantime, the case got taken to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court basically ruled that it was okay for the feds to be cutting the wire, at least while this lower court case was making its way through. And so they ruled in favor of the feds. Well, the state of Texas just basically said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to let them in. We're not going to, we're not going to tear down this wire. And so the governor got into it, and basically, I think at some point he accused the federal government of dereliction of duty, and so now you got this little bit of a war going down, and a bit of a standoff. Now the concern, what a lot of people are concerned about, is that Joe Biden or his handlers, they're going to federalize the National Guard, which he does have the authority to do. It's been done before. However, when the president nationalizes the National Guard, or federalizes the National Guard, it's because they're doing it in order to protect the sovereignty of the United States. Well, here they're talking about actually federalizing the National Guard to undermine the security of the United States, which is just the craziest thing. Well, the Border Patrol came out, and I'm not even sure how high up the rank it was, but basically they wrote an open letter to Joe Biden, to the Biden administration, first part of last week, I think, and basically said that we, under no circumstances, we will not obey any unconstitutional orders from the Biden administration. And so basically now you have the National Guard working on behalf of Texas. Texas actually has its own standing military. Most people don't realize that. You've got the Florida National Guard from Ron DeSantis, who is like the world's worst presidential candidate, but an awesome governor.
Yeah.
Great governor. And he sent, and it's crazy. He gave up his presidential campaign, and now he's back to being a great governor, and he's a great governor. But he sent his National Guard down to Texas. So you've got all these resources, basically, and then truckers and all kinds of other things down at the border. And they're kind of waiting to see what the Federal Reserve could send the military in. Now, granted, they'd be breaking all kinds of constitutional law by doing it. But I mean, the fear is that there's going to be civil war. There's going to be basically a hot war down there, and I know some Tim Pool and some of the others are out there really thinking, hey, we're really close to our Fort Sumter moment. This might be our Fort Sumter moment, and we're heading towards civil war. But I think that for me, at least, I don't see a scenario playing out where you would actually have Americans firing on Americans. I just don't see it. I mean, these are all Texas.
Unless it's fabricated.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, for Joe Biden, I mean, what I just can't imagine anyone in the military be like, "Yep, I'll shoot an American for letting to guard the country." I mean, what's the point? I mean, what are you doing it for? I mean, at least with the Civil War, there was much more at stake. I mean, there was a reason why the people thought they were, defending their states or whatever. This is I just want to let in illegals, and I love my Biden.
Nobody's going to do that. Now the fear is, especially with where you had the truckers in Canada a few years ago that went to Ottawa and basically shut down the government there, and Justin Trudeau went and arrested them, and for a lot of them he shut down their bank accounts. But I think what the fear is here is that basically you're going to get like January 6th here in America, you're going to get the feds down there in disguise wearing MAGA hats or something like that, and they're going to start opening fire on immigrants or something like. They're going to cause a scene, and they're going to turn sentiment against the MAGA and against the National Guard and
J6
Texas,
Part 2.
J6 Part 2, I think is the fear.
That's the
down
worry.
there, right, and I think that's kind of, but the crazy part about it, I think, is that we're at the point now. It used to be that the government could pull off this kind of thing, and we didn't see it coming. And they always had this element of surprise. And now I think everybody's so on guard that we know their game now. And I think everybody's kind of expecting this to happen. And when you call it out, when you expect it, typically more often than not, it doesn't happen. Or when it does, then people are going to find out who this person is, or who the group is that's doing the evil deeds down at the border, and call them out and show, hey, this is a psyop, or this is the government at work, or something like that. And so I think that I think it was Steve Turley who called these antics of the left now to try to win this next election Wile E. Coyote type antics. And I think that's what we're down to, is that basically the left is I mean, you're talking about people here who have a lust for power. They worship power. Like we worship God, they worship power, and they're about on the verge of losing it. And I think that's where I get kind of white pilled. I look all around the world, a little bit bigger picture here. I look around the world, and I see countries like Hungary a while back with Viktor Orban, Giorgia Meloni in Italy, this guy Javier Milei in Argentina. There's a guy in El Salvador. I just heard about this the other day. A guy in El Salvador.
Bitcoin is their national currency in El Salvador.
Yeah, and he's got a funny name, but I don't see it here. But he's got 90% approval rating, and he's just about to be reelected again. They've basically gutted the MS-13 gang, which originated down in El Salvador. And I mean, people don't even see this, but there's another country that has gone from darkness to light. And Hungary, Poland, darkness to light. Argentina is in the process of going darkness to light. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing at this point. My personal opinion, I tend to be an optimist on this, but I think that we are kind of going darkness to light here in America. And what you're seeing is basically, I think that with the Biden administration, they're in the fourth quarter. They had 2 minutes left. They're down 3 touchdowns. And they're just throwing Hail Mary passes and trying to see what they can do to score, whether it's a new war in Iran. It's a new war in Syria, Ukraine. It's a war down at the border. It's an economic collapse. It's a grid down. I mean, whatever they can do to try to stay in power, but they're down to, I mean, just, fumes, running on fumes of their power. And I think at this point that Donald Trump and basically a new day of, at least, I mean, say what you want about Trump, he's not perfect, obviously, but basically a moral based, nationalistic, pride in your country type of a conservatism getting ready to take over in America and elsewhere around the world. So that's kind of where I think we are.
Well, I mean, compared to what it is now, I mean, you look at what's going on under Biden, and it reminds me a lot of what's been going on in Germany for the last up teen years. I mean, it's this, it's this chaos. It's really, and truly, it's the opposite of nationalism, which whatever that is, I suppose it's just hatred of yourselves, of your country, hatred of your own people. And I'm not, I mean, don't get me wrong. Anyone who watches this show knows I am not a white nationalist. I'm not, but there should be, of course, a pride in your country, and you should want your country to be first. That's just, I mean, that's so common sense. That's like, and that doesn't mean to the exclusion of others. It doesn't mean to go and dominate others or to bomb them, etc. But you should want your country to be economically sound. It's safe, and your citizens to be comfortable before anything else. And if every country did that, you'd have a pretty good and peaceful world. But I mean, unfortunately,
you would.
It's just not. It's not how it works. But it's this weird, as you say, kind of this weird chaos. I mean, I guess in the U.S., bringing in the immigrants, you're supposedly at least adding to the Democratic vote, and I guess that's the cherry picking answer to why they're doing it.
Right.
But yeah, I just wonder, because I see it here in Germany. I don't know if there's a reason. I mean, other than they hate us, they hate Catholicism, they hate the Western world. I don't want to say white people, but they hate it. What it's become, and I think they want it gone, which is a pretty crazy idea. But maybe that's also the case in with Biden in Washington D.C. And I think the good thing is in America is that the Americans just aren't going to stand for it. I think Germans just kind of unfortunately have this apathy of like, we do hate ourselves, and it's terrible, it's sad, and it's since the war that they beat themselves up so much about Hitler and the Nazis that they do actually kind of hate themselves as a country. And I think from that, it makes it easy for the leadership just be like, you're terrible, you all are awful people, so you have no say. We're going to do everything to save everyone else because you're terrible and evil people. And it's unfortunately just what Germans think. But Americans don't.
Yeah,
so it's just not going to happen.
Not so much. No. Well, and I think that there was one of the conversations we were listening to, and I want to say, Elisa, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think it was Tucker Carlson. If you haven't seen, Tucker Carlson gave a speech in Canada. It was honestly one of the best secular. I mean, obviously, it was not a sermon or anything, but I mean, as secular speeches go, it was one of the best I have ever heard in my entire life. And he was, I think it was at the speech where he was talking about these people in leadership. And he said, these are broken people. Okay. He says, you and me and all of us, and you think about this, Kevin, we don't have a lust for power. We don't want to hold power over anybody else. We would like to make the world a better place. Okay. We would like to make the Catholic Family Podcast the best it can be. We would like to spread the gospel throughout the world as best as we can, but we don't want power over anybody else. When you get broken people who have nothing else satisfying in their life and they're broken, what they're going to try to do is hold power over other people so they can break them as well. And I think you look at the Joe Bidens and the Kamala Harrises and the Bill Gates and Klaus Schwabs of the world and all, and that's what you're looking at. You're looking at people who are empty, dead inside. And in order to find some kind of fulfillment in life, they try to do that by oppressing the rest of us. And I think that where I think we've really gone in the last, and really, I think this is a war. Our Fort Sumter, we're talking about Fort Sumter moment. Our Fort Sumter moment was Brexit in 2016. and then Donald Trump in 2016 as well. That was our fourth term, and that's when we went to war. And what Donald Trump did, I think more than anything else, he accomplished some things. He got a Supreme Court that overruled Roe versus Wade, and he brought down gas prices and drilled for energy and all this good stuff. But more to the point, what he did is he made the narrative. He got the deep state. He got these broken people to basically shoot all of their ammunition, all of their dirty tricks at him. And in the process, it basically exposed them for who they are. And they've done that. And then they've exposed themselves. And now we see them for who they are. We see their games. We see what they're up to. We didn't know this 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And I know Lisa likes to say that if you told me what the state of the world even 5 or 6 years ago, I wouldn't have believed you. But I mean, you see it the way it is today. They haven't changed. Mm-hmm. What's changed is that we see them for who they are. And I think that's where Donald Trump deserves a lot of credit. But I think that now it's a little bit like an alcoholic. You see where you see the problem for what it is. You admit the problem, and then you can start taking action against it. And so I think we're at the point now where the common man is seeing the problem. And now I think we're onto the phase where we're starting to take action. So what you're going to see, I think, with this immigrant invasion is that at some point or another, as Donald Trump gets closer to be reelected in November, you're going to see him say, you know what, send them all home. Just send them home. And you're going to have an entire structure of some really good state governors. You're going to have some Democrats who I think are under pressure from their own people who don't want to share resources. They're all going to do it. And we're going to get these, we're going to round them up and probably be very merciful and charitable about it and put them on buses and send them home. And I think that's the way we're going to handle that. But I think it's also the way we're going to handle a lot of the other problems that plague us. And so I'm talking in a natural sense here and some natural problem. Obviously, there's supernatural issues too, faith, hope, charity, a church that's defected and all that. And that's probably a conversation for another day because we're not there yet. But on a natural level, I do think that things are turning for the better.
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, I think, yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I don't really know what to think. I think that the U.S. there's definitely hope. And I think you see it again, as you said, you see it in Argentina, you see it in Hungary. I mean, you do see it around the world that there is some hope. But then I just see sometimes, like you see Macron gets reelected in France. And then the French go and dump poop all over the streets of Paris. And they'll probably elect him again. It's just like, I mean, I'm sorry, but are we in crazy world? I just like eventually it gets almost ridiculous. And I mean, and I obviously have the people who think that Trump is the Antichrist, which I obviously think is silly, but it's one of those things that I think it's almost at this point, I've just come to the point where I'm just going to wait and see. I don't know. I mean, it's like, it's everything's so crazy. There's so much going on and so much insanity that it's almost like it's more interesting to sit back and watch. But of course, I mean, it's good to talk about it too, and that's also why we have a podcast, right, to talk about these things. But I at least like I think if you're going to think about these things and talk about them, it's important to not only be black-pilled. I understand sometimes being black-pilled. I mean, right now, I look at Germany, and it's pretty tough not to be pretty black-pilled about a lot because Germans just aren't. They just don't care yet because they're not hurting yet. Once they're hurting, okay, but they're just not hurting yet. So there's just nothing happening, and that's tough to see. But I think it's important again to remember that not everything's bad, not everything is evil. Just because you don't like Donald Trump and because he's crude and gross and not moral, JFK wasn't either, but he was a pretty darn good president. I mean,
Abraham Lincoln.
Why do you think they killed him? I mean, so it's like I think that calm down, down and let's see how it goes. And I think it's good to be optimistic. I think optimism, like in this case, leads to patriotism,
right?
Which is a virtue, guys. And again, that's important. And we just did this show a couple of weeks ago about voting with Father McKenna and Louis Vrecchio. And there were moral theologians who said it can be a mortal sin not to vote. Now, there's a caveat, obviously, being that it actually means that it's if you do it because you don't care, if you do it because you're just like, no, it's not my problem, I'm not going to deal with it, whatever, I hate my country, that actually can be a mortal sin. And that shows you the importance of patriotism and actually caring for your country and doing the best that you can. And if you don't think that voting is going to do that and you come to that conclusion, okay, I'm not saying that's a mortal sin, obviously. But again, the idea being you can't be apathetic when it comes to your country. That is really bad. That is a sinful thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Can I interject something real quick?
Yeah, say, we've been cutting you off, Lisa.
No, that's okay. This is not usually my area of expertise, but I think that I saw something the other day that I think would white pill you if you're looking at it from a heavenly perspective. You're in heaven looking down on earth. I think it was Father Borja or somebody put together a map of all of the places where traditional Sede masses can be offered. And if you remember what it was like 30, 40 years ago, and you look at that map today and those points of light, that shine to heaven from heaven, that's a pretty big white pill. I think that if you are going to fix any of these problems, that's where it starts. And we've got Lent coming up here. And if you really want to fix the world, obviously vote where it's appropriate to vote. But more importantly than that, pray and sacrifice. And you can have an actual part in fixing this. It's far bigger part than any of these stupid politicians out there too. And I think that to me is, I just looking at that map to me is very, very encouraging, knowing that there are so many people, and that just the number of people that listen to our podcast. Holy mackerel. That's very positive.
Oh, it is. I know, Kevin, if here's two pieces of fact that are pretty white pilled. So if you look at this speech that Tucker Carlson gave up in Canada, I think he had to rent out a football stadium or something like that. And he had something like 20,000 people or something, or at least 10, but maybe 20. And I saw some comment along the way that said that was 10 times the size of everybody who watches the public broadcasting up in Canada during a given year. But then you've got on the other side, I don't even remember the name of the guy, the guy who did the Bud Light commercial, the trans guy. He was giving a speech somewhere and they rented out a hall and he didn't get 20 people. I don't think there were 20 people. They didn't even fill up 3 rows of seats that were like 6 or 8 wide. And so there a lot of what's going on here is the devil is really, really, really good at portraying himself as being bigger than he really is. It's one of the discussions we've seen lately. It's really fascinating. I'm not a fan of rap. I'm not a fan of Ben Shapiro. But I don't know if you heard he's got a rap song out and Joe McDonald or something like that. And it's like number 1 in the charts, and they're trying to fight to be number 1 in the charts for a week. And
the point being that it's a clean rap song.
It's a clean rap song, yeah. Right. And they are number 1 in the charts, I think. But what they're finding out is that in their quest to get to number 1, they're finding out all the dirty tricks that the industry plays in order to get their own people, their own degenerate music to the tops of the charts. And so what you're finding out is that these artists are really not as popular as we're made out to believe. And so they inflate their numbers. And this kind of chicanery really it's everywhere. It's in the financial markets and politics, media, everywhere.
Oh, I mean, real quick. I mean, I know this is kind of going down a rabbit hole, but anyone, okay, conspiracy theory, tinfoil hat time, put on your tinfoil hats. But the Taylor Swift stuff and how the Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl and how the NFL has gotten millions of fans and Taylor Swift's gotten millions more fans, and Taylor Swift is definitely going to endorse Joe Biden when the time comes. That is absolutely no possible way an accident. And I'm not saying it's only I'm not saying it's all for political side. I'm sure it's all a mixed bag, that they're all in it for getting money, etc. But there is a plan. They are planning. She is a big part of this. She is a part of it. And I've really struggled for the last year or so about why Taylor Swift. I mean, she's decently talented.
Okay.
She's not bad. Her music's not that evil.
It's not terrible.
Good, but it's not Katy Perry type stuff. And it's like, Why? And I think you just see she's the one they've chosen for whatever reason. And as you say, Dad, I think you're exactly right. They make it so that she is the biggest, she's the best, and when it comes down to it, her fans, however many there are, maybe there's not as many as they say, they hope that she's going to swing a big part of the vote. And I think that's an interesting. It's a weird place that we're in
Yeah, but it's how
societally.
people work, though. Think about it. If
Yeah.
you build it, they will come.
Right.
If the people will follow a crowd, so that's what they're banking on. She's middle of the road enough to hopefully pull in a crowd. I
Right.
think it's stupid.
But it's like,
The media.
oh my gosh, I'm Taylor Swift. Vote for Joe Biden.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
I'm going to take her word for it. Yeah,
Right.
she's politically savvy. Come on.
And the media is putting out this absolutely phony poll that says that 20% of Americans are going to base their vote on what Taylor Swift decides to do. And it's like, are you kidding me? Who's stupid enough to believe that?
TikTokers. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, woo, I don't know. Maybe. It's an interesting. Anyway, going to. Sorry,
that's a rabbit hole. But I mean, it's part and parcel of what we're up against here.
Yeah,
that I think that I really feel like the dawn of day. Now, this could be, who knows, could be something catastrophic coming. But I really feel like for the longest time, I've been saying for years now that I can't tell whether we're on a downward slide or an upward slide. And within the last couple months or so, I have really been more compelled by the white pilled argument than I had the black pilled argument. And I really do pay attention to both, and I see merit in both, but I see more in the white pilled argument these days.
Well, and I think real quickly, I mean, we'll probably wrap it up here, but I mean, if you look at Rome, look at Bergoglio. I mean, I think he's a great example. That I think, as you see with Joe Biden, just throwing out, just nuking, just going scorched earth as he's probably dying. At least that's how he sees it. He doesn't have much time left, so here we go. Let's just burn it all to the ground. And I think you see that with him, and it gets crazier and crazier. Hell doesn't exist, and gays are fine, and blah 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 blah. And it gets wilder and wilder, and whatever his agenda is, heaven help him. But
he's just pure destruction.
It seems like it. But I mean, if that's the case, it's so good. It's like exactly what we need in many ways. Right. Now, first of all, we also, of course, need a true pope. I mean, of course, that is truly the one thing that will unify, the only thing that can unify us all. But boy, it helps to have the fake pope just go bonkers crazy, because that's what actually brings people to the light. Many people. I saw, Dad, some of these guys that I'm sure you would recognize from the R&R crowd.
Oh my!
Some of these bigger names, not biggest names, but medium names, and they're all having a panel, and I'm telling you, they're all kind of like, sedevacantism is it's not so crazy. It was really wild. I mean, because these are guys who for years have been, you can never even consider this, and now it's kind of like, okay, they've got some good points.
Maybe they had it right all along. Yeah,
you start to see that it gets so wild that it's okay. Eventually, maybe this is actually the truth. And well, he just can't be the Pope, and you go down that line, and then we haven't had a Pope since 1958, etc. And but I think you're right, Dad. I think that I'm also not sure either if we're on a downward or upward trajectory, and I think I'm not really sure what I think yet.
We can't be on a truly upward trajectory until the church is restored. Right. And I think that, I mean, my honest opinion, you hear people, I mean, this is one of the R&R arguments that sedevacantists believe it's a dead end. I think that, humanly speaking, I think that we have reached a dead end. But God can do anything anytime he wants, right? I mean, God can restore the church tomorrow morning if he wants. God allowed this mess to his church. He'll restore it in a time that is pleasing to him, in a manner that's pleasing to him. I don't think we can fix that, but we can fix ourselves. We can fix our little communities. We can, go out and we can do our secular things and vote and all that. But I mean, mostly we can take our Lent seriously, and we can try to basically grow in love and union with him. And, when he decides he's going to take on and fix his church, that's God's thing to decide.
Perfect. Well, Dad, I think that's a good place to end it. I think that, I mean, we'll hopefully be back next week with Matt. We'll see if he's not still sick. Matt, get better, Matt. Get
better, Matt.
Get off the couch. Come on, stop being a bum.
Get some sunshine.
your name's on this show too. You can't be gone all the time. But no, Mom and Dad, I really appreciate it. I mean, really, really, always good to have you guys on, and I'm excited to see what's going to come out of the Salesian Method podcast, and everything else that's coming. It sounds super exciting, and I'm excited for the Lent around the world, because I think, again,
Mhm.
it's just very different. It's very Lenten. I mean,
Yeah.
it really is. It really changes the dynamic of the channel. We will also have some podcasts during that time, some interviews, but a bit less. But really, a lot more of this stuff that will help us hopefully stay in the mood of Lent, that is obviously more penitential, and then we'll
Right.
get back fully to it after Easter, which is March 31st this year. It's an early Easter, which is nice. I'm a big fan of early Easter. So, Mom and Dad, thank you very much. We'll talk to you guys again sometime soon, hopefully. Everyone, please like, share, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. And it's a good time already. Hey, if you have questions for my parents about child rearing or Salesian method, start
Get
sending
them
them to us
started.
now.
Yeah.
Comment on this video now. You can email me again, Kevin89Davis. I'll send it to them. Anyway, everybody, we'll see you next Monday. Thanks for tuning in. Till then, God bless.
God bless.